Hi, Heather Paris here of LiveInspiredNow.com, and today is day 6 of a week of stories. And my story today is actually about my dad. And my dad was given up for adoption when he was born, as soon as he was born. And back in those days, the birth mother had to sign a paper saying that you could be adopted. And if they didn't, you went right into an orphanage and you were not eligible to be adopted. And that's what happened to my dad. So my dad sat in an orphanage and then in a foster home for 11 years. And when he was 11 years old, my grandparents, Dot and Harry Whitman, walked into the orphanage and fell in love with my dad's bright red curly hair. And they had inquired about him, but unfortunately the foster family said he's just not eligible for adoption. His birth mother won't sign his papers. So there was a social worker who was my dad's social worker at the time who intervened, and this woman went to the birth mother and said, listen lady, this kid has an opportunity to have a real family. Sign these papers. You haven't wanted him in all of these years. Don't be selfish. Sign over these papers so that he can get adopted to another family. So she did. This social worker was successful, thank God. And she signed the papers, and then my dad was able to be adopted. So it took about a couple of years, but my dad, when he was 13, got to move in with Dorothy and Harry Whitman, and he changed his last name to Whitman. So Richard Whitman moved into his very, very first home ever. And it still chokes me up because that's my daddy, and it makes me feel sad to think that he ever had to suffer at all. But because of my dad's upbringing, because he went so long without a home, without a family, without people that really genuinely loved and cared about him, he genuinely loved and cared about us. He gave us a wonderful home. Both of my parents had tough childhoods, but it was in their passion or whatever to make sure that we had good childhoods. And of course I didn't appreciate it when I was a kid because my parents were strict and they had lots of rules and things like that, but I am so grateful now. And when you can see, when you're older like I am now, and you can see the bigger picture, and you see two people that had it rough, that went through hard times when they were kids, and my dad not even having parents or having a family until he was a teenager, and they were able to, instead of becoming victims and instead of having terrible lives, they turned it all around and decided that they wanted more for themselves as adults, and they provided more for us, my sister and I, and we had a really good life because of it. We even won Military Family of the Year one year, so that was pretty cool. And again, as a kid, I didn't appreciate it. No way. I thought my parents were total jerks for being so strict and and caring so much about us, and it was so overwhelming. And why would you do that? So, but now I'm grateful, and that actually has taught me a lot too, because I know that when my kids hate my guts, or if they're really mad at me, that just means that I'm probably doing a really good job, that I'm setting guidelines and boundaries for them that are really going to create who they are as adults, just like my parents did. And I'm so grateful that I had the best examples in my parents. So yeah, very, very touching story for me. And again, just one more reason why I became who I am, why I care so much about helping kids in crisis, because my dad was that kid in crisis. My dad didn't have an opportunity to have a family until some nice social worker intervened, and I thank God for that woman every day, whoever she is. I'm sure she's probably dead now, and she was old when my dad was a kid. So it's with very much a lot of gratitude that I thank her in spirit wherever she is today. But yeah, that story, and my dad and my mom really both shaped my entire future just because of their past. So I am grateful.